So it's about triggering a different language that we're using as we think about this AI of who is the Robin to your Batman? If you could describe anybody that could be by your side, sitting next to you in your role to make it better and more valuable for you to be in your job, what would you do?
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. Our broadcast today features a panel from our recent Metis Strategy Summit. The topic is Talent Strategies for an AI-Driven Future. And the panelists were Kristie Grinnell, the Chief Information Officer of TD SYNNEX, Madhu Ramamurthy, the Chief Information Officer of Zurich, North America, and Sesh Tirumala, the Chief Information Officer of Western Digital. The session was moderated by Metis Strategy West Coast Manager Ozlem Ulusoy. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you guys got to take a little break and come back with more energy. We've been talking a lot about AI, the technology of it, the process, how do we apply, what do we do? We're here now to talk about the people part of AI. As it's changing the way we live our lives, as it's changing the way we do our businesses, we need to consider the impact on talent. How do we hire? How do we reskill? How do we figure out guiding people's careers and keeping them excited about what we're doing and keeping them innovative and calm about all the changes that keep getting thrown at our way. So I have here 3 CIOs from 3 very different industries, all tackling digital transformation, AI transformation, enabling data strategy, risk management, cybersecurity. So these are all things that are forefront in our minds. First, I'm going to ask Kristie. Kristie is the CIO of TD SYNNEX since January.
Congratulations.
When we were talking about enabling AI and talent, you talked about creating a safe environment for people to experiment so they can embrace AI. It's, of course, a lot of balancing, too. How do you find you can balance that innovation and people's creativity with also keeping things secure and with a good governance model?
Yeah, absolutely. So TD SYNNEX, for those of you who don't know, we're probably one of the largest companies you've never heard of. We are a global technology distributor, Fortune 100, and we literally are helping to bring hardware, software to those that use it in the end consumer, small and business through resellers. And so as we do that, we're doing that through digital platform. And the more we see our millennials and the next generation come into the workforce, what we see is they want to buy all of their technology through a digital platform. So at TD SYNNEX, we believe that innovation happens at the edge, where you're touching that reseller, you're touching that small business, you know what they want the most. So I need to enable that innovation. But in order to enable that innovation, we need to make sure that we're doing this at speed and we're giving them that safe place to play so that we don't end up on the front of the Wall Street Journal, but we're not moving like a Titanic, we're moving like a speedboat instead. So we've created, in the 3 months that I've been there, we've created a playground where as long as you play in this space, and we've set it up, we've chosen AWS, we're gonna eventually set one up in Azure and even in our own on-prem data center, depending on what people are trying to do. But the idea is, if you're in this playground, you can use any of the large language models that you want, any of the AI that's here, and you can do so safely because we've already secured it. We've already ensured that it's not going to get out into the wild. Play away and see what you can do. And as you're playing, then we're going to make sure that we're putting the right guardrails in place for when it's ready to really go live. And that takes away some of that fear because we have a digital, we call it the DART, Digital and AI Responsible Transformation, COE, that's meant to say, you know, what is all the legal and the compliance and the data privacy and the cyber and all those things. But as people come through that, they start to go, oh my goodness, right? And they become a little afraid of what they're about to do and nervous. And so we want to speed up and give them the ability, like, it's okay. We've already taken care of all that for you. Come in here. And while you're doing it, while we're thinking about this, as you're playing in the playground, then we can say, okay, how can you grow up and move this to a production system that can go live?
Awesome. Yeah, it is, especially new generation grew up with it and they're coming so excited and they want to do a lot, but there's a lot of liability that comes with it.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to Madhu, who is the Ramamurthy is the CIO of Zurich, North America, a traditionally very conservative industry, insurance. How do you go about balancing that, harnessing that excitement, yet keeping the boundaries so they're safe, so you're safe as an organization?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I grew up in India where still 60% or more of the marriages are all arranged marriages where you get married and then you fall in love with your spouse. So I ended up in insurance and then I fell in love with insurance. and then I think I'm still in love because the last 24 years I'm with insurance. So for those of you who are not familiar with insurance industry, it's
That's great.
highly regulated and super, super conservative. So when I think about AI, the whole wave when it hit us, it was more like AI on one side and then the business on the other side. It's like science and religion, right? So initially we started with a heavy amount of distrust and fear of change. And then it quickly evolved into, there is something that AI has got to offer. Okay, let's find that middle ground where there is some peaceful coexistence. And then it soon evolved into, AI has got much more to offer. Like now, if you look at where we are, we graduated from a science, like distressed science and religion distress to where, I'll scratch the surface, I'll do some data extraction, enrichment, mundane tasks, automation. And then we have now evolved into agentic AI, more of digital twins, and much more. We have allowed AI to come into the core space of underwriting and claims management. It wasn't easy simply because, as I said, it's highly regulated. So it's a state regulated, not federal. So every state has its own set of rules, and then the products and offerings that we do offer from the insurance is bound by those rules and the AI models. So the two important things that we had to do to be successful from an AI standpoint is first build those models that are super transparent, so that it is easily something the underwriters could understand, or the claims specialists could understand, or it is something that you can explain, or it is explainable to the regulators in the state. So those were extremely important. And the second thing is that build something that can be incrementally rolled out. So always the insurance, the workforce is pretty conservative. They start with skepticism always, right? So it's important that you release AI in an incremental fashion, focus on the fit for purpose use cases that can give you the maximum value with less effort, so that it's very surgical and you go after instead of, because we did the mistake of, like 5 years back, we started our first AI, and then we did a big bang approach and we miserably failed. Mm-hmm. So we learned from that, and the company still trusts me. Like, I'm still employed at Zurich, so we are continuing to make progress in an incremental fashion. We have come a long way from where we were 5 years back. Still a lot to accomplish.
Great. So you are employed, you're still in love. We're good. So Sesh, you're the CIO of Western Digital. You have, you're dealing with hardware. You have manufacturing facilities all over the world. So AI has been part of your life for some time. And then we also talk about ERP transformations, also part of what you have to do. So they're seemingly two very different things you have to tackle at once. You're also looking at skills assessment, looking to see, what do my people know? Yep. What do they need to know? So how do you go about figuring out what skill sets you're going to need going forward, from the architecture all the way to operationalization of the life cycle of your products and your systems?
Great. It was not arranged marriage, but different story, but happily married.
Still married.
So anyways, glad to be here. So back to your question, right? So I think the problem statement that we face, obviously there's a lot of macro uncertainty, most recently with tariff, and you always have pressures in terms of OpEx, right? And the business always expects a lot more out of the dollar. And we all, as CIOs and leaders, grapple with this uncertainty on a daily basis. So you're not going to get incremental budget to go focus on AI and get to the future state. So in a way, you have to be smart about how you use your existing dollars and your existing headcount, right? So which then means that, and we've been around for a while as an industry. So back to your question on skills assessment, I'm going through an exercise where we're trying to capture the skills of the entire organization, right? And then have the skills, the proficiency level, and obviously it's subjective as well, because do you allow people to self-rate themselves, or do you have the management judgment that's applied as you collect all the skills? And then the second thing is, I believe in the life cycle of architecture, design, implement, and operate. And then you need to look at, in your different service offerings, have you insourced too much, and where have you outsourced too much? And I'm sure a lot of them will agree that, especially architecture and design, you want it to be heavily insourced, right? And then maybe implement and operate, you can balance, based on where your portfolio allows for. And again, like you said, we have issues in terms of ERP upgrades. If you're in an SAP environment, it's pretty imminent in terms of how do you plan for the next. So again, as CIOs, we have to balance, the core of running business, enabling top-line growth, but then how do you prepare the organization for the future? So again, when I think of architecture, design, implement, and operate, some of the core skills in terms of what do you have to do for math and statistics, given our industry, I think is super important. Likewise, a lot of software programming, I think, is super important. And then when you get into the design and development part of it, we clearly heard from other panelists as well, data is your strategic asset. Mm-hmm. So how do you build the right data models? And again, the whole data science behind it, the data engineering aspects behind it, the deep learning that goes behind it. So again, you need to start to think about these paradigms. And then when you go into post-data engineering, you also need to think about ML operations, how do you think about observability, et cetera. And then last but not least, you got to do all of this in a secure way, right? So how do you implement the right policy? How do you implement the right ethics? How do you think about zero trust models? So you need to bring all of it together. So then when you go through your existing organization and do the skills assessment, you go, well, this is where I need to be, this is where I am, and how am I going to get from here to here? And you have to make some hard choices, right? It may not be a clear-cut performance issue, but you need to really have a hard conversation going, who are going to make this transition? Because there are some people that are curious. And again, it's not all about education. It's education, exposure, and experience. So you need to really think through who's going to step up and get there, and then who potentially will not make the transition, and then how do you prepare the organization, right? So again, I think it's a very methodical process you need to take, and you need to bring the organization and especially your direct leadership team, behind in terms of this journey, and it's quite an undertaking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, Kristie, I know you went through a similar exercise or at least going through figuring out what skill sets do we have and reskilling. And you also mentioned when we were talking about agentic AI, prompt engineering is not enough. It's not end all be all. We need to go beyond that. So what are some of the things you learned along the way to get people to think more holistically and not just, okay, I can write prompts, I'm good?
Yeah. It's actually so interesting because as soon as ChatGPT came out, which that's a moment in time that I don't think any of us are going to forget, right? It's before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT, where, all of a sudden our life cycles started to go so much faster in our companies, where everybody wanted to bring a new technology to the table, and it became, we're going to need to train prompt engineers and we're going to need to do all of this. And how many of you created your action figure doll that on LinkedIn? Has anybody done that? Oh my gosh, come on, everybody. You need to get out there and create your action figure doll. You can get yourself packaged up with your accessories. It's a great lesson in prompt engineering, right? And it's all about how well you write your prompt in ChatGPT or whatever your favorite AI tool is. and what the action figure comes out as. When I first wrote mine, I was like, okay, I'm 52, I'm 5'2", I'm a CIO. It had me coming out looking like a grandma. And I was like, I am not ready to look like a grandma yet, right? So you have to think about how you're describing things and what you want it to bring in. So then I started to say, I'm in a technology distribution company that's forward-leaning. I like my Starbucks in the morning. I am always on my phone taking notes, if not, dialing up the latest technology, and I'm traveling around the world. And the next thing you know, it had me in jeans and sneakers with a jacket on, and it had my passport in one hand, a Starbucks in another hand, and my phone was like in a little like package next to me. So it depends on how you do that prompt. Well, that can be translated into how do we become the best user and facilitator of AI in our organization. How well do you know your business? How well do you know your data? How well do you know your customer? What type of experience are you trying to create? It's that sort of curiosity and that sort of knowledge that we can't forget. And it's interesting because as we think about AI, I've been on the West Coast now. I'm actually based in Virginia. I've been on the West Coast for a week. And yesterday I was in an EBC with a large software provider here on the West Coast, and they were so excited about what they were presenting us with their AI. And what they said is, you won't need any more junior financial analysts. And all I could think was, I really hope there aren't any junior financial analysts in the room and on the call, because we're all learning about the technology. We actually want the junior financial analysts in the room, but we want them to become smarter and come up that learning curve faster because they can use these tools. So it's about triggering a different language that we're using as we think about this AI of who is the Robin to your Batman, right? If you can think about who you want as your sidekick, that's how we should be thinking about how AI and thinking about those skills. Like if you could describe anybody that could be by your side, sitting next to you in your role to make it better and more valuable for you to be in your job, what would you do? And having that business knowledge, having that experience that you've built from, having that natural curiosity, thinking about how you bring your Robin up to speed with you so that now your Batman, your superhero cape, your Wonder Woman and your invisible jet, right? Whoever you are, all of a sudden you're thinking differently in your company because you have their sidekick, not because you're looking for a replacement, not because you're only thinking about how to write a prompt, but you're now thinking about how am I earning revenue? How am I increasing productivity? How am I adding value to this company every day, whatever that metric might be? That's what we want people to be thinking of, not just how do I write a prompt? Because frankly, I can get any AI engine of my choice to write a prompt for the other AI engine of my choice, and it's going to come out better than what I can do.
Absolutely. We've definitely all done that. Use one to write the prompts together and experiment back and forth. It's fun, but yeah, to a degree.
Yeah.
Which, you're talking about knowing your business to be the hero. Madhu, you and I talked about the importance of subject matter experts and how it's now even more important in how we work with business and how we retain these people in IT, keep them interested and innovating at the same time. So I know you have some experience talking about how do we support business better with more SMEs.
Sure. I loved your Robin Batman.
Yeah.
analogy. I'm going to stay.
All right, good, thank you.
So, subject matter experts are key, and not that the coders are not important. Like when I started my career in early 2000, so I was during the Y2K time, I was a mainframe developer, and then I became a C++ developer, where I was dealing with pointers and linked lists and memory allocation. So it was super complicated. And then come 2010, and then it was all like go behind the source code for any of the websites. It's all Java, JavaScript, PHP, HTML, and then like come 2015, it's all about Python. Like my son in middle school was a Python expert, right? Like so, things from a development standpoint, now it's low code, no code, and then more generative AI coding. So it has evolved so much on one hand, and it is much more commoditized, and standardized through APIs, so the coding side of things. Whereas on the other hand, it's about the business, and it's becoming more and more challenging for the business folks to differentiate themselves from the competitors. Like, what's my core value proposition? Like, how do I differentiate in the marketplace? And more than ever, customer centricity has become super important. And then that's where I feel we can differentiate as a business, even within insurance space, is with the subject matter experts. So at a point, like a couple of years back, like we wanted to ride that AI wave. Like, oh, let's go spend millions of dollars and building this whole AI center of excellence. And then there was like support from every part of the senior management. But it was more looking like there are multiple solutions looking for a problem. So we spent a lot of effort and money, and then like, what's the value? What's the outcome we are trying to get? And then we realized that we didn't have the right product owners, right domain experts, right subject matter experts who were driving it from the core. So that's where we started investing even more on the subject matter experts who could really come and define the why, define the what, and then judiciously use the tools from an AI standpoint, whether it is all the like we used like Gemini in some cases where we needed more data accuracy. We were using Claude from Anthropic, and then in case of scale, like we were using GPT. So it was a fit for purpose solution, but everything was driven by the subject matter experts. So we realized very soon after some mistakes that it's extremely important to get those SMEs in place. And then we were doing it in a multi-pronged approach. Like, one was we obviously had a legacy talent who were neither ready to go and adapt to and get trained to compete with the next gen folks who were already coming with the AI skills, or people who were resistant to change. So we didn't want to let them go because they had the tacit knowledge, the tribal knowledge of the company, and we reskilled them and made them the subject matter experts. So they were like two in a box. Like, you have an SME sitting with an AI developer and trying to figure out things. And then we also had some cross-pollination from the underwriting and claims space on the business side, like who came into IT and became the subject matter experts. So it was extremely important to get that right for us. Now it's like a clockwork, some of the things that we are doing, thanks to the approach or the pivot that we took to enrich our SME expertise in the organization.
Amazing, yeah. And then it all comes back to how much value do we provide to our businesses, right? It's not just innovation for innovation's sake, but how do we show value? In your world specifically, with all the external uncertainty currently, that's even more crucial. So yes, let's use AI to save money, innovate fun things and efficiencies and get rid of the mundane work. But how do you go about showing more value with that spending?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have the usual KPIs or OKRs, right? I think as a part of every IT practitioner, the way we approach it is we have two buckets. One is perform, and then the other one is transform, right? And you get keys and permission to transform if you do a decent job on perform, right? Perform meaning, your help desk satisfaction, your uptime of your services, your meeting conference rooms better work, those sorts of things, right? So you meet your SLAs, your availability metrics, your performance metrics, et cetera. And then comes on the transform side, what are you doing to enable growth? What are you driving in terms of productivity? You got to reimagine business processes too. So typical proxy for those metrics are cycle time, and how do you move people to higher value add work, right? I think that's super important. But the hard problems to solve are still where, you need combination of, to the point Madhu said about business literacy, data literacy is something that we grapple with. And I talk to a lot of people that have the same problem, is around demand forecasting, and how does that demand forecasting translate to an effective supply planning in such a way that you don't have inventory, turns going the different direction and stock outs, et cetera. So you really need to digitize all the way from, and again, demand forecasting is also, art, science. It's a big swing, and you need to bring the product teams, the sales teams, operations, and finance to enable a collaborative mechanism in such a way that you can predict and respond to this fast-paced change in the world, right? So again, for that, you really need to think about statistical models, time series forecasting models, data preparation, and then you got to use, out-of-the-box solutions, because for demand, you could have one solution. For supply side, you could have different. So again, I think as IT, we can't think siloed functions. We can't have a team that's supporting the demand team and a team supporting sales and a team supporting supply chain. You need a few that are, if you think of the T model, you need a few that can span broad, and then you need deep expertise, right? And you got to infuse them together in sprint teams or squads or whatever the terminology you prescribe to, right, in terms of driving the needle forward. And then lastly, what I'll say is, how do you make the business case? Gone are the days where you can say, give me $10, $15 million for this kind of a problem and see you 3 years later. How do you have, to again, steal a leaf from all of the young startup companies, how do you have drip feed investments, right? You get to milestone 1 and then you prove out the value. Do you move forward? Do you not move forward? And then to the next milestone, so that with every milestone, you're demonstrating either a value or a risk or things not working out, so you can manage your risk. At the end of the day, it's about managing risk on a continuum on your milestones.
Absolutely. So clearly, a lot of this is about efficiency, again, getting rid of mundane tasks. But coming back to what you said, Kristie, we still need that junior financial analyst. Mm-hmm. So just briefly for all of you, maybe the same question or similar, how do you then ensure that person that this is an enabler, it's going to help you do your job better, you're going to become a superhero? What has worked for you? What advice would you have?
Yeah. So we're trying to help people see the value of AI in their current role rather than thinking of it as a replacement for the role. So we purposely, we just had last week a session with all of our executive leaders, and we asked them who would be their sidekick. And so that people realize that we are thinking sidekick, that we're not thinking about a replacement for their job. Even silly things like Bring Your Kid to Work Day a few weeks ago, we had an AI app with Legos, and we put all the Legos down, and then what would the AI build for you? We're like, imagine what your job could be like if you could give it your pieces of data and what the AI would help you build in your job coming out of that, so that you see the fun in it and see how it can assist you rather than just take the place of your role. And then, I think it's really interesting, and I have to laugh because I learned something from all of these, and I'm like, I did not have an arranged marriage. I met my husband in a bar. What does that say about me? I don't know. But you want those people who are going to think very differently and disrupt in the way that we're working, right? So you're going to have those people that are going to be afraid that it's going to take their job, but then you're going to have that person sitting next to them that says, oh my God, did you see what this did for me? Look at all the things I don't have to do now, and now I can focus on this. And they're disrupting the way that maybe finance is working, and they're letting it go rogue like the pivot table, right, was. And so if we think about it in that way and allow I consider it more as a reverse mentoring, because the kids are coming out of school in a way that they're just assuming they're going to use these tools coming out, not to replace their job. They're like, this is going to make me better at my job and help me get to that next level faster. So let's embrace that and almost have a reverse mentoring path in order to allow that to happen. I wrote my kids over Mother's Day, I wrote them this thing like, thank you for making me a mom, all this stuff. And my son's immediate answer was, did AI write this for you? No, it was from my heart. Okay. So we just have to think differently.
Yeah. How about you, Madhu? I know you're you have to make some choices between insourcing, outsourcing. How do you balance all of that and keep people excited about AI?
Yeah, I'm wearing this jacket to hide a lot of scars. So it's about we made some investment in building. This was 5 years back, and then soon to realize that we cannot keep up with where people do this for their living. And then we're an insurance company, not a software AI company. So, but having said that, so we defined a very clear framework on when to buy and when to build. So anything that is super core and central to your strategy, how it differentiates you from your competitors, your secret sauce. Something, if you take the insurance space, it's the pricing, the rating, the risk engineering, the core of what we do. We try to keep that inside. Like we have a team that builds that in-house. And then anything that is super sensitive from a data standpoint, proprietary information, we don't want to be sharing that outside with another product or another vendor partner. And then we have several unique products that are super custom built and for specific set of corporate customers. So again, the flexibility that we need to be building through those AI models, like we are keeping those things in-house. So this is our rule for like keeping things in-house. And then anything that is a commodity, anything that can help you with the speed to market, anything that's not super data sensitive, anything that is available much more in a standardized manner, so that can help you speed up things to delivery. So we go and buy them. So it's not a one size fits all, but we do that based on the need, but keeping in mind that like safeguarding your proprietary, your data sensitive, your core in-house. So that's the framework.
Absolutely. And I know, Sesh, you work with your directors, senior directors specifically, so you're not the only one who's telling the story, who's bringing people along, but they're the ones sharing that and driving people to go with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone needs to have their elevator pitch ready, right? And it's got to be about the business. It's got to be about the outcomes, and then talk about the how and the what, right? But have the outcomes and your elevator pitch.
Well, thank you so much. This was
thank you.
Wonderful to hear your experiences. And I think the note to take away is we got to take our people along, not going anywhere anytime soon. So we need to make sure we're innovating and staying safe within the boundaries. But thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
everyone.
Thanks.